Darren Rovell and Will Stern here with Collect TV, and we are doing our auction recap. Another great weekend. I know Will and I get more excited than a lot of you people, but we love going through this stuff. We've talked enough about the Walter Johnson jersey, for God's sakes. Let's try to make this thing more interesting. Will, let's talk about this Babe Ruth baseball, and you kind of discovered it. It went under my radar because of the price was low, but this is a really interesting situation about what an auction tells you and what you kind of have to come up with if you want to bid on this thing. So tell us about this Babe Ruth baseball.
Yeah, so we had a Babe Ruth ball signed and inscribed. So it's not single signed. It doesn't just have Babe Ruth on the signature. It's inscribed to a fan, and it's attributed to a 1930 game. It's sold for $9,600, which is about in line with what you see for a typical kind of middle of the road Babe Ruth signed ball, sold for $9,600. What's really interesting about this is that in the auction description, Heritage noted that it might actually be a Babe Ruth home run ball. And they weren't able to conclusively say it, but just the fact that there's that possibility out there, it's remarkable that this didn't sell for at least as a hefty, 50% premium or whatever to what a single sign ball would be. I mean,
Yeah, I looked at that description and basically says, okay, so when I'm analyzing it, I'm like, all right, so it says it might be a home run ball. They say they have the letter of provenance. They say they have the newspaper that shows that it was from this incredible stretch where he hit home run after home run. It was like 8 home runs in six games or something like that, a doubleheader, 3 doubleheaders, and this is part of that stretch. The thing is, it says to Bill Thompson, it's like, for me, if you can't find a name, now they didn't often talk about who was catching the balls at the time, but you do have, some of these guys over time that have been in the paper. It didn't have a connection to Bill Thompson. So I think, if you can't definitively tell the story or get to the story, then I don't think it's going to have the premium. In the era of photo matching, in the era of research, it has a shot, but I don't think they went far enough. And I think the price of around $9,600 certainly proved that. All right, let's move on to magazines, because we've in the office talked about magazines more than we've talked out loud about them. 1980 Miracle on Ice Sports Illustrated, a CGC 9.8, sells for $19,800. These are newsstand copies, people. We need to tell you that. That's how kind of this business has arrived at the scarcity. They don't have the label on them. And there are just not a lot of copies that are pristine, and people have believed that the scarcity of things here will drive this market. I don't know. I mean, I looked on eBay the other night, and I really could not find a whole lot of auctions. There was a ton of things that were being listed as magazines that were newsstand copies at prices, but auctions really weren't that active. So I don't know if we're going to get there with magazines, but there's certainly a lot of people trying. Will?
I think one thing to note is just the definition of newsstand versus subscription. So newsstand typically, meaning, it was sold at a newsstand rather than mailed to someone's home, is typically around 20 times rarer than subscription copies. And the hobby of magazine collectors have valued them pretty significantly more so than subscription edition. So this one, it sold for 26 grand last year. So selling for under 20,000, it's not like a crazy drop off, but considering, we did see a pretty big pop in high-end CGC graded magazines, like you would think that this would possibly mark a new high, and it kind of failed to live up to
Yeah, I, I,
expectations here.
yeah, I totally agree there. I've talked a bunch about, listen, I always got to get a ticket in there. The Jackie Robinson, first home run, Again, that's like the most baffling thing I saw. You know, the Roger Maris ticket sold for 48,000, the 61 ticket, and that was signed by Maris. It's a pop too, but the Jackie Robinson first home run is just baffling at $25,200. It's not something that Jackie Robinson was known for. You know, to his first home run to me seems a little bit insignificant. It's a nice ticket from what is, you know, his third game. And yes, the debut sells for a crazy amount, but I don't understand this. Do you?
I mean, at 25 grand, it's hard to justify, but still just any early ticket when there's only two of them in the PSA population and it's Jackie Robinson, it's not shocking to see it go for a crazy price. It is shocking to see it go for this much of a crazy price, but still, I think, whereas, yeah, I don't really care about like uh Derek Jeter's first home run ticket because he's not a home run hitter. Jackie Robinson wasn't a home run hitter, but he's just such an important figure and everything tied to him is so highly valued that it's not unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. I wanted to end it with the Al Capone sweetheart gun, the gun that saved his life. It got up to something like $850,000, but the consigner pulled it, did not get the bids that they wanted, and obviously, you know, went for $1 million in 2021. Uh I didn't say I was going to ask you this, but what do you think about guns as collectibles?
I mean, one, I think I'm not sure if that's the case here, but oftentimes like there's legal implications about buying, from like rock auctions, Rock Island auctions. I know a lot of the stuff they sell, like they're legit guns that people, when they're purchasing, it's like buying a gun. So that adds a wrinkle. And
Hi,
I
I'd like to
definitely,
get Al Capone's gun licensed to me.
yeah, I think it definitely adds a component of kind of controversy here because you're talking about, you know, somebody, literally a weapon of murder that's
Yes.
attributed to a guy that is responsible for many people's deaths. So it's kind of a dark item,
It-
especially, when you think about the way it was kind of presented originally in the 2021 sale. It came from kind of a large catalog of items from Capone's life and signed by his granddaughters. And, you know, they kind of danced around his culpability, which is kind of odd.
Yeah,
So
listen, these are very hard items. Frankly, I haven't held anything back. I've been looking to get a Lee Harvey Oswald item, and it's difficult, right? I mean, it's really difficult because you are excluding a lot of people, and it's also, again, I'm all about telling the story. You kind of have to clean up the story if you want to buy it and tell it. And you know, so I do think it presents problems, and it's different to get a Capone signed check, say, versus an actual
yeah.
gun. These are two different things. All right, we talked about this earlier in the month, but Lelands posted O.J. Simpson's signed dance recital program from his daughter's dance recital on the night of the double murders. Uh, where is the line here? I think we both thought this was no good. It was $2,001 in 2016. The guy got it slabbed, and now it went for $4,446. I know Leland's is hoping for $5,000 to $10,000. This is probably, well, it's definitely the most valuable OJ Simpson, or the most paid for an OJ Simpson signature on a piece of paper. Uh, this is a this is a tough one, but they got 22 bids here, Will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand who is bidding on that. It's gross. I think it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that not only Leland's would include this, in my opinion, but yeah, I can't believe it got that many bids. Earlier in the month, you reported on this and spoke to the director of acquisitions, and he said, "There's a line we don't cross, and this doesn't touch that line." When I read that, I was stunned. I mean, if you have a line and this doesn't cross it, where the hell is your line?
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like for $4,500, this is the worth the blowback, but maybe we're the only guys yelling. So I don't know. It doubled, so at least they, it did well, probably based on, OJ Simpson dying. But yeah, this was an interesting one. All right, another week of our auction recap. Will, thanks for joining me, and thanks everyone for joining us on Collect TV.